What are you guys playing?
Super fight.
And you can't beat Freddy Fazbear.
I have a currently who's winning is a gorilla with E.T. as a sidekick. E.T. has a mustache that can stretch at its own will, and both of them are armed with a shotgun.
Oh my goodness.
I think I beat a woolly mammoth that can run through tunnels at with super speed.
My goodness.
That's what I'm choosing.
That's what you're choosing? Let's see. Oh, 50. Oh. All right, if you guys have never heard of this game, I'll find it and link it. It's called Super Fight. It's a card game, and it has been great for my kids because my kids love to argue with each other, and this just gives it a little purpose, a little oomph, you know? So basically what you do is you pick cards, and it gives abilities, and you have to argue over who would win.
Currently, I have a gorilla.
Right.
A sidekick.
No, okay, so he got a gorilla and then he drew a second card, which is to say it will give you a sidekick with a new attribute to your sidekick. So the sidekick he drew was
E.T.
E.T., the extraterrestrial. E.T. phone home. Come on, 80s kids. And then E.T. has a mustache that can stretch and move at will. And so then he has to fight Toby, what he drew, and Ben, what he drew, and it ensues...
Both of them are armed with shotguns.
Oh, gosh, we can't forget the shotguns. That is imperative. Okay, so they argue over who would win.
So far, I've won 2. My first one that he won against was a woolly mammoth. The main reason I chose E.T., well, I got E.T., but I'm really happy about it because E.T. has telekinesis.
What do you think, Tobe? I think you got a pretty good chance right there.
I thought E.T. was scared for him sometimes.
You used to be scared of E.T.?
Yes.
Yeah, he's a little creepy looking.
I can't remember what E.T. looks like. I just know what
He's a bald baby.
A bald baby?
Basically.
So Jeremiah's family just loves to argue. It's like by nature. It's built in. And we've played Super Fight. We like our whole family many times. And there was this one time, I don't know what it was that was drawn. I can't remember. It's been years ago. But all I remember was Noah in the family room standing up and kicking the coffee table out and going, "This is Sparta!" Like every time I see Super Fight, I think of that moment. It was really funny. It is a great game. Once kids are old enough to like read and reason. A few years ago when we first got that, my kids were not really old enough to engage. But now they play Super Fight at least a couple times a week. And it is solid. I mean, occasionally fights break out. I will be honest. Occasionally they take it too far, take it too personally. But overall, it goes okay. Now look at the fall color on the farm. It's so warm. My beautiful epic trees got nice orange leaves. We are peaking here in the Midlands, just everywhere I go. It's absolutely gorgeous. I have like 30 minutes of light left. I was gonna come out here and start some seeds. I may just get the cups ready. I forgot to grab the seeds in the house. I was just going to start some things that I can put in empty spaces in the high tunnel when they start to empty up as we harvest things. But I don't have to start them right now. We had our initial freeze that killed everything, and it actually hasn't frozen again since then. So I haven't fully decided to clean up the garden though. That's coming. These peppers are still in really good shape here in the greenhouse. Oh man. It's sad. We have saved multiple really beautiful specimens of butterflies that got caught in the greenhouse. I think my kids are going to make a shadow box, but it does make me really sad. So I'm going to go ahead and fill up these cups. I didn't bring the seeds out. I just want to start some seeds of probably like greens primarily. Maybe some more broccolis. I'm not going to do anything super fussy for these. I'm just going to leave them here in the unheated greenhouse. We do need to take the shade cloth off. I figure if I fill up some cups, set them in some water. I can come in and tuck the seeds in probably tomorrow. We'll just let them grow in here under a little bit of cover with the full sun, with the shade cloth being off. And then as spaces open up, as we harvest things out of the greenhouse, I'll have plants to like tuck in when those spaces open up. I knew I was gonna come out here and try to do this. I was actually gonna try to start the seeds, but I left the seeds in the house. And I grabbed my camera because I was gonna chat with you guys about something, I guess, relatively unrelated to homesteading. That's okay. We don't just talk about homesteading here. I would love your book recommendations for novels. This is something I've not really covered extensively here on the channel. I know we've been talking a lot about book recommendations for reliable information regarding homesteading and gardening. But I am an avid reader. And sometimes that takes the form of audiobooks. A lot of times that takes the form of audiobooks, especially through the like spring and summer when I'm really busy with gardening stuff. I listen to audiobooks a lot during that time. During the winter, however, I do read more paper books. But even as I pick up like crochet projects and things like that, like I do more crafting in the winter, and that goes hand in hand with audiobooks. Doing lots of cooking in the kitchen and doing some preserving and stuff. Audiobooks are great for that. And I would really love y'all's book recommendations on what you have read recently. A little bit of what I've read recently, I've actually been recapping. I just recently re-listened to the audiobook series of The Hunger Games and The Ballad of Snakes and Songbirds. I think that's what it's called. I'm really bad about remembering titles of books that I read on audio and listened to because you don't see the cover constantly. You know, when you read a book, you've got the cover there constantly where you can remember it. I re-listened to those because the new Hunger Games movie is coming out, and my sister-in-law Michaela and I are going to watch it this week. I'm really excited. So I love when a book becomes like popular in pop culture and people like get around it, because I've been a reader my whole life. When I was like 8 years old, I think, I remember going in to my grandmother. She was an avid reader and she was a writer. And I remember telling her, "Grandmother, when I grow up, I'm gonna write books too." And I was a child. And she was like, "Jessie, if that's true, start reading now. If that's your ambition in life, go ahead and start reading." And she told me, she was like, "If you want to be a person that is able to write, you need to read. Because then you know what you like. You'll find your voice in what you appreciate in other people." People will say to me often, they're like, "You're so wordy," you know, like that definitely comes from being a very avid reader. And so that can be somewhat, I don't want to say isolating, but there's been a lot of my life where I have been really sucked into books that other people don't necessarily, I don't have connection with people over it. So any time that a book has become like pop culture and there's like a following around it and there's lots of people reading it, I've always loved to get into that. So Michaela, my sister-in-law, and I years ago read the Hunger Games series. And you know, we would like go to the movie releases and be there. And so when they announced this new movie for the new, it's actually a prequel to the Hunger Games by Suzanne Collins, I went back and read it. And she and I both read it, got prepared, we bought our tickets. I'm really excited. I just love it whenever it's a relevant thing to go to like a movie release for a book. That said, I would love to hear what you guys are reading. I really love historical fiction. I specifically love historical fiction that is set during like the World War II era. So one, let's see, there's a couple. I'm pulling my phone out so I can take a look. Audiobook account. There's one called The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna. Kristen Hanna is really good. I like her stuff. I will say they're very heavy. They're very intense, but The Nightingale is probably my favorite of hers. It's set in World War II. And I love reading things in that era. Another one that I read that I really liked is called The Kitchen Front. That's a World War II era book. Recently, I just listened to Will Harris's new book. This is not fiction. It's nonfiction. He's the owner of White Oak Pastures, which is a regenerative farm down in Georgia. And he wrote this, I guess it's sort of a memoir, but it's really good. I definitely think it's worth listening to for anybody who's in this lifestyle. It's called A Bold Return to Giving a Damn. Man, I really enjoyed listening to him and just his experience. He's just really done it, and it's no apologies. I found an author somewhat recently called Karen White. She writes a lot of books that are set here in South Carolina, and some of them have been like, they've been good, you know, like I haven't been entirely sucked into them. Some of them, however, though, have really like got me from the get-go, and I've gotten really sucked in. What I really appreciate about like World War II fiction, I think I like thinking about hypothetical scenarios and thinking about what I would do in those situations. Obviously, we're kind of preppers, I guess, you know, like I feel like that term has been so tied to people who are like different than us that I've not really considered myself a prepper really until the last couple of years, when I've looked around at my life and been like, well, if the shoe fits. I mean, that's not why we live the life that we live. We live the life that we live because I believe that this is thriving for humanity. You know, I mean, we have access to the healthiest food, the most nourishing, a lifestyle that is challenging, pushes me, allows my body to grow strong. I do feel a lot of comfort in knowing that we have food security to a certain degree. I also, like, the reason I don't feel like sold out to the idea of prepping, and I've even said this, like I'm in like some different prepper groups on Facebook and things like that, and the guineas, do y'all hear them? I've even said before, I'm like, so what exactly is y'all's plan? Because I'm confused. Like, I feel like a lot of the mentality that comes up in prepping conversations sometimes is not exactly realistic. So if I'm a prepper, which I recognize the fact that yes, I am, like we are largely prepared. We are focusing on growing in our skills. We are focusing on growing our food. We're focusing on building a community that is sufficient. That puts me in the box of a prepper. But if I am a prepper, I am a very realistic one. That is keeping in mind just the realism of things coming down. However, I really like dystopian fiction. I really like World War II fiction. I like stories like The Hunger Games that are like very like post-apocalyptic. And I think the thing that does for me and like why I like that is I like asking myself, like, what would you do in this situation? And I like being posed with situations that are very much like situations that I've never been posed with before, and thinking about what would you do. I feel like it expands how I live my actual life in the actual circumstances that I live in. Because I like to think about, for instance, when we talk about like growing food and valuing the garden, I recently shared with you guys that I started a personal challenge in our household to not do any regular grocery shopping for the rest of the year. I still have bulk bought from Azure Standard. It's not that I'm not bringing any food in. I was not prepared for that challenge. But it's really, I'm trying to push myself to like really view the value of what we have as a resource, and to push myself to really use that and plan around it. And it's brought up a lot of the fiction that I've read about World War II, where, especially in like England, where like rationing really heavily played in, and people like just did not have access to what they had previously had access to, and they had to really change the way that they were consuming. I like to imagine, like, what would I do in a situation like that? Oh, look at this. Hold on. Let's see if I can show you guys. Do y'all see that little wormy squirming around? I bet he's going to be really happy when I water these cups. I don't want to give in to fear, because I'm prone to that. I'm prone to like playing the what if game and taking it way too far and losing my peace. So I have like a firm grasp on my peace and like a settledness, But I like to think about what if. Like, what would I do if I couldn't just go to the store? What would I do if I did not have access to, you know, the things that were not accessible during rationing? And I like reading novels like that because they just give me new scenarios to imagine. And I feel like in imagining that, it makes me more creative with the situations that I have now. It makes me better at handling them. And actually, you know, I've shared this a little bit, but watching grocery prices really increase through inflation. I recently started my new YouTube channel called The Farmer's Table, kind of talking about cooking from scratch, because I feel like a lot of the problem that people are dealing with right now with groceries being so expensive, it doesn't fully alleviate it, but it alleviates it somewhat to be able to cook from scratch, because a lot of what is getting more expensive is convenience food. And a lot of that thinking for me has come from reading fiction. It's come from reading how a person was just, that kitchen front book, they were just extremely resourceful with what they had. In that Nightingale book by Kristen Hanna, they're in Nazi-occupied France in this book, and she talks about not only like billeting officers and rationing, but she has a vegetable garden. It's so easy when you are doing this, like what we're doing, living in such a privileged society. I mean, like, if my garden fails, I can go to Walmart. Like, there's no concern that we're actually going to starve. And at times, I feel like that's really worked against me. I've shared before that I remember very specifically this one day that I had spent all morning, hours, in my squash patch picking off squash bags. Hours. And I was like crawling through there. I get hives from dealing with plants like squash plants, itchy plants. And at the end of this, I'm covered in hives. I've got bumps all over my body. I'm itchy. I'm irritable. And I go to the grocery store because that day I needed to do my grocery shopping. Oh, hello, Avocado, my dear. Thank you for joining me. And I walked in the grocery store, and squash, the very same variety that I had planted in my garden at home, was maybe it wasn't even 98 cents a pound. Maybe it was like 78 cents a pound. It was dirt cheap. And I had spent my entire morning. And I'm like, my God, I could have bought this stuff for $5, you know? Like, and here I've spent my entire morning. I'm in physical agony over trying to save this squash. Ultimately, that's what led me to really taking an interest in heirloom gardening, because I needed the motivation to grow something that I couldn't just go see taunting me with very cheap prices at the store. But all of that to say, like, it's very hard sometimes to lose your motivation to, like, grow everything you can, to be resourceful, to save what you can, whenever you go to the store and you see cheap food and cheap goods all the time. Reading books like that kind of gives me a little bit of perspective on, like, not what things are currently worth now. My homegrown food is worth a lot to me now, because I know that what I buy at the store, oh, that's full of spider webs. I know that what I buy at the store is really not comparable. Don't get in there. It's not even the same thing. But when I read books like that, and I read people dealing with rationing, and I read about people dealing with shortages, it makes me not have to stretch so far to imagine what it would be like to go through something like that, which ultimately allows me to joyfully do challenges where I essentially restrict myself. It allows me to really see what I'm growing as deeply valuable. Why are you so cute? All right, these 2 trays are filled. This soil is very dry because it's been sitting out here in this pool for a little while, and I'm gonna go ahead and spray it down with some water and fill up these bottom trays so this can sit in water and rehydrate. But I'll come out here tomorrow and tuck some seeds in here. Hey, girly. Avocado. Kitty, kitty. You want to go walk? You want to go walk? Come along. 2 of the guineas are out. 2 of them flew back in and joined the chickens. They're so gloriously loud. So yeah, that was a long backstory to explain why I was asking for book recommendations. I like reading a lot of things. I like reading like fantasy novels. I love historical fiction. I would say if I had to choose what my favorite is, it's historical fiction. I've read a lot of books, so I love your recommendations. However, I will tell you, there's a very good chance that I've read like, I've read a lot of books, but especially if it's on a good audiobook, I really like that. That helps me get through a lot of the tasks that I do. Oh, hey there, chickens. Are you enjoying your new space? Let's go in with them by turning this off. So I mostly tell people do not step over electric fences with your hands full, and then I come home and do it on the regular. Do as I say, not as I do, right? Well, that rooster just hopped right over this. We need to move this coop away from the edge. It's definitely not good. If you would like to contain your chickens, don't put the coop right next to the fence. It was probably just too full in here and they thought it would be okay. But that rooster is now wandering, which is fine. It doesn't matter. There's nothing for him to get into. This year we did not put... Are you going too? Are you busting out too? She's looking up. She might go over that edge. Well, chickens in a garden space are so happy. Today was one of those days that I was busy for a lot of the day and I didn't get home until like 4:30 and I have no time. It's like almost dark out here. I thought I was going to get some stuff done, but I've not yet adjusted to the time change. I've not made realistic expectations for what one can do when it gets dark at 5:30 at night. Here's sweet Maya. Hey, baby.
Hey.
What are you doing?
Well, I saw you all the way down here and it's getting cold out.
So you came to fetch me?
I came to drop off the side-by-side so you could rush back to the heat as fast as possible.
You're so sweet to me. A rooster just hopped right off the chicken coop over the fence. Over here.
That's silly.
Alright. Smells so good in here. So Will was working on this earlier today. These are cabbages, primarily. I think there's some broccoli plants. But basically everywhere that the peppers were frost damaged, we're just replacing them with the next wave of things. So this doesn't look like much right now, but here in a few months, this is going to be lovely and lush, full of food. As it is over here, there's quite a bit to eat. We have dealt with a little bit of pest damage, like you can kind of see here. I'm going to let it keep growing because like this is cabbage. And though it has some pest damage on it, it is starting to develop a head. And even if the outer layers have a lot of holes in them, if the head is solid, then it's fine. This is such a random smattering of food. Look at this chard. Isn't that beautiful? I need to work this into some recipes. This is ready to go. I've got to come up with something to do with beets. I've got quite a few that need to come out of here. So we garden year-round here in mild South Carolina. It does freeze here, but even with our hardest freeze, we can typically grow things under cover, like a high tunnel or some frost fabric. There's this lull that happens in the garden every year. I was telling Maya earlier, because I was thinking about making videos, and I always struggle with making very many videos during like November and December because there's just this little bit of a lull on the farm. There's not like anything exciting happening. You know, occasionally we'll start some seeds, we'll throw some things in. We're usually building infrastructure, doing a lot of cooking. But it's the time to rest. which is what we do. We read books, we crochet, we do more restful things. I've learned to embrace it, to make the most of it, because the next thing we know, guys, we'll be busy in the garden again. So it's okay to take it easy.
She's like, where'd the ramp go?
Oh. That's good.
It's on.
The fence is on? Alright, I'll back up. I was asking people for their book recommendations.
Lord of the Rings.
Jeremiah said Lord of the Rings. We've read the Lord of the Rings multiple times and listened to the audiobooks. Actually, now the Hobbit and the Lord of the Rings audiobooks make me think of moving here, because during the process of moving, we made multiple back and forth trips. It's an 11-hour drive from here to Arkansas, where we previously lived, and those are the audiobooks that we listen to with the kids on the way here. So now it definitely reminds me of that time. Well, guys, it's not even 6 o'clock in the evening, and I am very thoroughly out of light. So I will bid you farewell here, but I would love to hear your feedback on what you've been reading lately, what you've been loving. Tell me why you like it. Tell me what it's about. Tell me if you listen to an audiobook, if it's good. The orator really makes a massive difference in that.
I gotta take Ben.
All right, well, we can drive back together. I'm done. Thank you guys for hanging out with me today and all the days you do. I bless you. Until next time. Bye.